It's another night. It's a Thursday night. It's the 27th of March, 2025. It's the last Thursday in March, 2025. This time next week, we'll be getting... I'll be off next Wednesday for my birthday, which I got to talk about in a second. I've been confusing people with birthday comments. I understand since the joint address of Congress. I don't know what the hell I've been doing wrong. I realize afterwards what I'm saying because people start wishing me happy birthday. I'll get to that in a little bit. But anyway, the clock is ticking on March 25, and it is it's starting to feel really nice, fresh, sunny, a little bit breezy, but I'm all for it. It's time to get into the real good sunny time of the year. Tonight we're going to have a great conversation with two guests. First time they're going to be on the show. It's Top Lobster and Raven, or Dave. They co-host the Nephilim Death Squad podcast, and we're going to be talking about some kooky shit, the kind of stuff I really love talking about, the unseen world and how it works, and prophecy and all that other good stuff. That'll be up front, and then whatever time we have left in the show, I'd like to finish with a little bit of a meme review, and it's a good one. It's a wholesome one, but still pretty iconic. So we'll talk about that later on. Again, welcome. It's the 27th. It is 7:02 p.m., and let's just get on with it. I want to thank my sponsors tonight, Keto Brainz. Keto Brainz. KetoBrainz.com. That's with a Z. It's in the link. The link is in the description below. It's also all over the website. You get a 20% off of your first order if you use the promo code Frankly. And you get a recurring 20% if you become a monthly sponsor of the Quite Frankly show over here. And it's one of my favorite products ever. And I love just black coffee and especially ice. But this, man, oh man, the kickback you get from it, and it's not like, a 5-hour energy. It is just MCT oils and just goodness, good healthy fats for your brain. Jay Gulanello says, do it. And that's why I did it. So, and over a year later, I'm still loving it. Now they're a sponsor, and I couldn't be happier. Really can't, and I hope you all enjoy. Many of you are. I also have two other big announcements. So that starting in April, actually the first time that we're going to do it is going to be April 12th. It's a Saturday night. We're going to have at least one Saturday night special a month. At least one. And that one is going to be Rumble only. So we're going to get some feature time over there on Rumble. Going to be able to either take calls and or bring in a special guest and do special things, make it a little bit more of a outside the box kind of a night that it used to be when we were doing Saturday shows a lot more frequently. So there's going to be that. It'll be a nice thing to really, dig our way in through the inner workings of Rumble a little bit more, have some fun, and that'll be great. Look out for that. But also, starting next week, I am very, very excited to say that the Thursday night episodes of this show will also be available on Badlands. I know John over there, and of course, Zach and Brad, and God knows who else. I forget how many friends we have at Badlands, and I've been a co-host of Adel's show, Taking It Back, on Thursday afternoons over there for so long now that I inquired. Hey, say, listen, we got this Thursday night show. If you have any time, you should. I'd love to team up, and we're trying something for about a month. It's not exclusive, which I think is the greatest thing. Is that for that night we're going to be on there, but also all the other places, and of course I'm going to make the show commercially available for them that night. If they got a MyPillow ad or something else they want to read, I'd love to do that because I actually sleep on a MyPillow pillow because of them. Because I got a MyPillow from Adel when I first started doing Taking It Back, and Taking It Back went on to Badlands. I said, what the hell am I going to do with this pillow? I already have one. And then I got it, and the first thing I used the pillow for was for propping up my knees when I got a blood draw done at home. I have a doctor that comes to our house, right? So whenever I wanted to see what the hell my 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 blood was looking like. I said, I need the most comfortable situation possible. Doc, can you come to the house and take my blood out of my veins? Sure. And the first time I ever used the MyPillow was to prop my knees up as I was laying down on the couch, because I told you I need to get horizontal for that shit, and I need about a week to meditate. Sorry, it's just not easy for me. And now I love it. I use it for under my neck. Anyway, I'm really excited about this all starting in April, because it's an opportunity not only to introduce the show to many, many more people, but it doesn't interrupt anything, any kind of normal routine that you guys may have with the 7 o'clock show as it is. That's it. And yeah, all right, moving on from there. Jay Gulanello is in tomorrow night. That should be fun. The Yankees won their opening day game today. That was nice. And what do we have over here? The signal scandal thing. I don't know what to really make of this whole thing. Everybody's pointing out that Catherine Mayer, the leftist NPR CEO, is currently the chair of the board of Signal. So everybody's pointing out how people you wouldn't trust are at these apps that are supposed to be secure but probably aren't. Now, I wouldn't trust Signal or anything like that. Most assuredly, let me see. Let me get it up there. There you go. That's what I saw today. That's from Publius. A few others were talking about this. Most assuredly, there's backdoors on this app like every other one. But here's the quote from Mike Waltz with Laura Ingraham the other night. I had to go grab it. He said, "I take full responsibility. I built the group." So while he accepted responsibility, Waltz, he also seemed a little uncertain about how Goldberg, the writer from The Atlantic, ended up in the chat. So could it have been a mix-up with another contact? I don't know. He didn't deny it. So that's why I'm just like, I'm having a hard time opening my mind to the whole idea that the contact was planted when you have Waltz himself saying that he messed up. That doesn't take away from the other point of contention, which is how much actionable top secret information was actually shared there, and what is just the media, a desperate, hungry, thirsty media. I mean, you're talking about any story right now that can create a little bit of controversy for the Trump campaign, the Trump administration, is like, an oasis in the desert. So, I don't know. I think like I said, this will be old news in a couple of days, and they'll be better for it. What is this? Luigi Mangione. Listen to this little bit from RT. Luigi Mangione fears that his fans might hurt a McDonald's employee who called the cops on him. It wouldn't be good for her. A lot of people would be upset if I was arrested, Mangione says. His fans. Now, listen, I brought this up in the past about how quite a few Americans took a lot of pleasure in watching people like John Dillinger rob banks during the Great Depression. Many of them felt like they had been robbed from institutions like these, and it was like, somebody was doing what they wish they had the balls to do themselves. It didn't even matter that he killed about 10 people or so along the way. But I don't know. Everything about this, anything, I guess, modern, is a bit more senseless and detached from reason, for some reason. Especially with this Mangione kid, who now we know was producing porn and all this other stuff. I just have a feeling that obese women in their late 30s weren't turning John Dillinger into gay anime characters because they were obsessed with him on some Tumblr fandom like they are with Luigi. If there's anyone capable of becoming our generation's Charles Manson, it would be this guy. It would be this guy. I bet you any money he has people sending him panties through the mail. So, just some strange stuff. Here's another little something for you. Bella Ramsey, she's a young actress. She played Lady Mormont on Game of Thrones. And I saw the headline recently that she was, I don't know, like a boss or a director or somebody came up to her and said, I think you're autistic. Well, Bella Ramsey, you may not know who she is, reveals why she decided to publicly share the autism diagnosis. And this was just kind of funny to me because it made me think of something else. I'll tell you in a second. Bella Ramsey is proud of her decision to reveal she's autistic. I don't know. I could see that. She just has those sleepy eyes. I feel great about it. The 21-year-old actor who's non-binary, which take a note of that, please. There's another non-binary autistic person, but is indifferent about which pronoun she's referred to by. I don't care about it. I'm just not anything. Yes, very, very advanced. It's just like fun. And I was just saying that I can now, and it's a way that people can see me like, why is Bella being a little bit weird? And now they get why. Like, now you know I'm weird. I'm autistic. Like, this is weird. I'm telling you, so strange. So strange. I mean, I know a lot of people who are not autistic that are still weird and socially awkward and all that other. I mean, I'm telling you, everybody wears some sort of diagnosis on their arm, like it's a chevron. It's so strange where we are at this point. But the reason why I want to talk about this, because I know it has absolutely no impact on any of your lives, is that I remember when I was young, I didn't know there was a difference between autistic and artistic. I didn't know what the hell. I didn't know. I thought it was the same thing. If you were autistic. I was watching television. Probably I was like 9, 10 years old, probably around 94, 95. And it was specifically a little bit of program. It could have been like Entertainment Tonight or something on ESPN. I don't know. But it was about Dan Marino, the quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. And somewhere along the line in this program, it mentioned how Marino's son was autistic. And it just, went right over my head. I'm listening to this whole thing. I'm watching it. But then they kept harping on this whole thing. And they're, asking Dan how he handled the news that his son was autistic, how his being autistic impacted their family life and stuff. And the whole time I'm saying to myself, shit, I mean, I'm artistic. So what does this mean? What's wrong with being artistic? Like, I'm thinking about me liking to draw. I like, whatever. I do art projects from time to time. I enjoy doing that from time to time. Like, what's wrong with being? So, I just remember that. And then finally I think my mother had to explain it to me. Somebody had to explain it to me because I wanted to know why ESPN or Entertainment Tonight was so concerned about Dan Marino's son being artistic, like it was some sort of a disorder. But it wasn't. It was something else. And Lady Mormont is that something else. So anyway, that's where we'll end right now. When we come back from the intro, we're going to set the stage for our two guests tonight. And where it goes from there, I don't know. We're going to be talking about a little bit of the telepathy tapes. I want to talk about remote viewing because that's a big part of this week's news about the Ark of the Covenant being located by the CIA or attempted to in the 80s. And then there's Mount Olympus, which is the original reason why I wanted to bring these guys on. I wanted to do a little bit of a deep dive into mythology and lore and whether it is there's more to it, more to the nature of these deities and the hierarchy of Mount Olympus than we were led to believe. So anyway, all that and more when we come back. BRB.
Phil, hey, I was just thinking about you. Those Islander tickets, right?
How about this humidity?
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back.
Does anybody else want to stay?
Let's ride!
All right, we're back. We're back for another night together. The pre-show is over. That was all fake. This is the real deal, baby. Another quick reminder to you all that the fan features, this is the last week. Next week we're going to be putting together the bulletin for the April 7th release. We get an extra week because of how late that first Monday arrives in April. So you have still a few more days to get to quitefrankly.tv. Hit the forum tab, and then one of the pinned topics there are the newsletter fan submissions, photos. Seriously, would love to see what you and your families are doing. Any spring trips, any upcoming graduations, remembrances, frankly anniversaries, the first, whatever the hell it is. Let us see. Let us see what's going on there. Oh, and on the birthday thing, everyone, it is not my birthday until Wednesday. I asked people when I shared last night's episode today, I put a little bit of a tag on there saying, hey, for my birthday present, just go on to Spotify and give me 5 stars. 2 clicks, and that would be great. Thank you for a little birthday present. And I realized only after the fact that makes it sound like today was my birthday. And that was very poorly worded, and people started saying happy birthday. So it's not until Wednesday, so it's not too crazy, but thank you. Not as bad as what happened a couple of days before that, though. That was an ambiguous statement. That's on me. But a few days ago, I checked the 5-day forecast, and I saw that on Saturday, that's coming right now, it's going to be 74 degrees here in New York. I said, what? I said, yes. And I was so happy I took to Twitter. And I said, gonna be 74 on Saturday, baby. Or something like that. Gonna be 74 on Saturday. And again, people started wishing me happy birthday again. Now, I assume that most people were just kidding, because some people said, you look great for 74, Frank. But I really think that some weren't kidding, which is confused the hell out of me. So I had a couple of birthday false starts recently, and I don't know why I made things so hard to comprehend. A lot of it was my fault. I just want to say sorry about that. And on Wednesday, it's the real deal, but I won't be on air, so you can wish me a happy birthday on Tuesday. That's all I got to say on that. All right. So here's what we got. Secret CIA files claim the Ark of the Covenant has been found. Location of a chest believed to contain the 10 Commandments has long been a mystery, but CIA documents claims the Ark of the Covenant has been found. According to the Bible, the Ark of the Covenant was built by the Israelites shortly after they fled Egypt around the 13th century BC. Moses then placed the 10 Commandments inside. The CIA conducted experiments in the 1980s with individuals who claim they could perceive information about distant objects, events, or other people. The report details one of these tests where remote viewer number 032 was given coordinates to locate a target. They described the Ark of the Covenant hiding in the Middle East. Some historians believe the Ark of the Covenant was originally kept inside the Holy of Holies, the innermost chamber of the ancient Temple of Jerusalem, before it disappeared during the Babylonian sack of Jerusalem in 586 BC. There's also a legend that the artifact was taken to Ethiopia and now resides in a local church. That's the Church of St. Mary of Zion, I believe. And I don't know. That was always very interesting to watch documentaries on it on the Discovery Channel or History Channel, when that was the only place that you can get a little hit of a conspiracy-based, cozy programming before we started being able to make our own on the internet. And I always thought back then, like, if this thing is really in this little chapel in Ethiopia and all they have standing outside of it to guard it is one sleepy monk, you really think that they would be allowed to keep it? No way in hell. Evidence that the chest existed has yet to be found, but the CIA document declassified in 2000 claims it was discovered. It was discovered in 1988. The target is a container. The container has another container inside of it. The document states the target is fashioned of wood, gold, and silver. It is decorated with a six-winged angel. The remote viewer continued to say that the coffin-shaped object is located somewhere in the Middle East and saw people in the area speaking Arabic. Wow, somewhere in the Middle East, and there were Arabic-speaking people around it. The remote viewer, however, was not told that they were searching for the Lost Covenant before the experiment began. So there's your control, I guess. There is your control. Now, tonight, I'm just going to throw this right at our guests who are starting to arrive right now. I want to throw this right at them, but before we do that, I want to introduce you to them. We got Top Lobster and we've got Dave, or Raven, of the Nephilim Death Squad with us. They take frequent deep dives into the world of biblical giants, fallen angels, and all the dark, twisted spiritual stuff your pastor probably won't talk about. And they're here tonight to pretty much extend their show into Quite Frankly, and we're just going to team up. How the hell are you guys doing tonight?
Yo, Frank,
good. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Hold on. I see Lobster. Where's Dave?
Oh, that's odd. Hold on a second. Maybe if I adjust my settings real quick, please bear with me. That's odd.
There I go.
Yeah. You got. Well,
you got.
Give me 1 second, guys. I'll be right back in.
You got it.
The option to share the screen. This guy's unprofessional. I can't believe I do a show with this guy. It's been like over a year. Incredible, right?
You guys hosted me a month ago now? Less?
Oh boy, yeah, probably. I mean, time is just dilated.
There's nothing.
They're going lately, huh?
No, there's nothing really. There's nothing that I don't know. It's not even a thing. I'm redefining it every day. But you guys really were very gracious hosts. I had a wonderful time with you. So I know that you're technically proficient in all this stuff. We'll figure it out. But before we lose track here, the Ark of the Covenant story from this week, I would love to start with that with you guys, because it's going to open the door to a few different things that I know that you're already picking into, especially when it comes to remote viewing, telepathy, all that stuff. And then we can get around to other stuff. Hold on, let me see if we can get him in now. Raven, you hear us? Hello, Raven?
Very strange. In the studio, in the back room, my camera works. As soon as I hit here, it's not working. Guys, I'm sorry. I'll be back in a second. Let me restart my whole rig.
Yeah, well, listen, if it doesn't work the third time, as long as we have your audio, it's fine by me. So that'll be good. But I'll start over here with Lobster. And we'll see you in a bit.
All right.
Okay. Anyway, let's get into this matter over here with the Ark. It's one thing for somebody to say they found Noah's Ark, they found the Ark of the Covenant, they found other kind of, the Spear of Longinus, whatever the hell it is, some kind of relic of great historical and spiritual importance. But when you start bringing in the CIA and you start talking about remote viewing being used to locate these things with a control, put in place that the remote viewer did not know what they were actually looking for. Yes, it wasn't very exact as to where this thing was and how to find it. But what do you think about this? Because a lot of different worlds start to converge here. We have intelligence communities. We have, very powerful spiritual entities and relics. And then the practice of remote viewing that apparently anybody can learn how to do, but with mixed results.
Man, this is a subject that we unintentionally have been studying for a while now on Nephilim Death Squad. It started off very quick, like briefly with Cliff High. I don't know if you're familiar with his work.
I know him.
Oh, you know him.
Of him, yeah.
I would love to talk to him, but I think he's a little too big for us. That's fine. Some of his work, he uses remote viewers. I know he used a guy named Dick Alligator to remote view some events that were going on with Donald Trump and Joe Rogan at the time. And that was like this, what was the date? It was like the November 3rd date where there was supposed to be something significant that would happen, and that would set off a trigger of events. And that had to do with the remote viewing phenomenon. So it started there. So we became kind of fascinated with this idea. And obviously, like looking into the current events through the biblical lens, we have I guess you could say we have a pretty good footing in in this weird like supernatural realm that's going on.
Mhm.
Looks like David's ready to join us here. Hey,
I
David,
see him
what's
there.
up?
With the November 3rd thing around there, that has something to do with all the drones that were popping up in New Jersey.
There we go. Sorry about that, guys. I don't know
Oh,
what was going on. I'm getting
now-
sabotaged. I
Awesome.
think.
We got the whole crew together now. We were just, okay, so just to get you up to speed, what I was talking about with Lobster over here is that we had this Ark of the Covenant story that I think would be a great place for all of us to start, because it takes from several points of focus that I know you guys are really into and have done a lot of work in. First of all, we have the practice of remote viewing, and all of the variable results there. But then you also have the involvement of the CIA, right? A number of intelligence operations there, and public disclosure, which is an op in itself. All types of public disclosure it's a very interesting thing right there too, because I always wonder what of any great importance is actually preserved in a nature that could be FOIA'd one day by anything. So there's that. Then there's the Ark of the Covenant, where something that is so precious and so powerful in a spiritual sense and in a symbolic sense is just out there, and we're always talking about recovery of lost relics and how that can help the powers that be cement their power in the world by drawing from energies of the unseen world there. So where do you guys want to start? I just threw it over to Lobster. I don't know if you want to continue where you left off, Lobster, so then Dave can dovetail onto what you're saying.
Yeah, I was Dave. I was vamping on Cliff High, one of our favorite subjects, but because it does pertain, it all connects, right? It's like the remote viewing aspect of Cliff High's work that kind of rolls into this UFO phenomenon that then rolls into what we're going to talk about here today. So I was just expressing the importance of remote viewing and why the CIA, why the CIA would be obsessed with it. Is that the correct word? Would you say obsessed?
I would say they're obsessed with it. Yeah, in a huge way. I think it's funny because much of what we regard as like pseudoscience or fantasy seems to be almost top priority in very many instances for our intelligence community. So yeah, I don't know. The whole thing is interesting. I don't know if he went into the whole Cliff High thing, but that is a remarkable situation that I guess is kind of ongoing as we speak. He got onto our radar when news reached us that there was a prediction that was made, and just the short of it is he's got this web bot that he's been working on since the early 2000s, I believe, and it seems to, in his estimation, have predicted loosely events like 9/11 and other big calamities, the invasion of the Middle East and things of that nature. And it goes on to have another prediction that Cliff, the guy who creates it, kind of not covets it, but this is like a really big deal in the series of information that he gets from this web bot. And like I said, this web bot, what it does is it basically it just data chunks conversation off the internet, and there is some sort of alleged psychic aspect to it where it's looking for emotionally charged language, and through that emotionally charged language it can get enough data that it can make a sort of prediction. So one of the predictions that Cliff suggests is a really big deal, pivotal really in today's time, is this moment where Donald Trump and Joe Rogan are going to get together and they're going to have a conversation, and it's going to be televised to millions of people. And, he's getting this data back in the early 2000s, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. In the early 2000s, there wasn't a lot of language for podcasts. Joe Rogan was still the Fear Factor guy. Donald Trump was certainly not running for the presidency. And, but nevertheless, this is the information that he got. So it took a long time for him to develop it. And one of the things that he used to develop that was a remote viewer, and that person was able to allegedly view this moment in time that was going to involve
David. I mean, he drew a damn picture of Rogan and Trump. Listen, let's not get caught up on this, because I don't know if we're going to have enough time to really tell the story that we want to paint, because this is it's an epic story here. But
just to let you know, I'd like to go for we have right now. We can go at least until 8:30. So I mean, whatever. Don't cut corners. Yeah, don't cut corners if you don't want to.
When we start this story, you're going to understand why. Like, we came on here to talk about, well, initially when we scheduled, we were going to talk about the Pantheon, these entities, and it blew up and it became, I don't even know where to start.
It just so happens that your boys are at the cutting edge of something that is developing in a fantastic way right now.
Hashtag breaking. This is
That's right. Hashtag breaking. So, I mean, screw it. Maybe we'll go into that. I hope you don't mind, Frank, but we've got something that we've been cooking on, and we'd love to kind of present it here. And
absolutely. And before we do that, Lobster, is there any way that you can just jack your microphone up maybe 2 notches?
Yeah. Here we go. Let's see. Hopefully, can you hear me now? Can you hear me better?
Just a little bit more.
All right. I'm all the way up.
Perfect.
There you go.
It sounds good now. I just wanted you to get level with Dave. Okay. Right. I have a bunch of notes over here. We can get to them whenever. We have more than enough time. So let's see what you guys are cooking. Let's go.
Okay, Frank, I want to pose to you a series of questions, but first I have to ask you one.
Are you
the language that we use on this show? I don't want to get you in trouble, is what I'm saying. So should we go about censoring ourselves in a way that, like, wouldn't trigger a YouTube violation?
I mean, you guys are on YouTube as well, so I guess what if you do whatever you got.
We're gonna play it. All right, don't worry. We're gonna navigate this without getting you nuked.
Yeah, do whatever you tell the story, however you can.
Okay.
To have it
so
survive
let me pose
here.
a question to you then, Frank. Right now, the telepathy tapes are getting really big. Are you familiar with them?
No, I'm only familiar with the telepathy and telekinesis patents or so that have just been filed with what's it called, Neuralink and all that.
Yes, which is going to be part of this conversation. So I'll give you a 1,000-foot overview. Basically, a bunch of parents who have been dismissed by the medical industry in such a way as to say that your nonverbal autistic child simply does not exist in that physical body. You're not going to have this breakthrough, and there's nothing that we could do for you. And it leaves these parents in despair. It turns out over time, many parents will discover that there is some sort of form of communication from their nonverbal autistic child, but it exceeds what the medical industry is willing to tango with. And it takes the form of telepathy, some sort of, reading of the mind and things like that. And so what happens is this gets on the radar of what's the doctor's name, Top? I forget what her name is, but either way, there's a doctor who actually becomes aware of this and sees it anecdotally in play between one parent and their daughter. And they're doing a Zoom call or a video call. And it seems that this child is able to predict whatever the parent is thinking about in regards to numbers. And it taps into all kinds of stuff. It seems that the children can see colors associated with numbers. This is called synesthesia. But the
name of the doctor is Dr. Diane Powell.
Dr. Diane Powell, right. So this is not an isolated incident. What ends up happening is Dr. Diane Powell becomes aware of a multitude of families, and they're all over the planet, right? Some in Mexico, some in Europe, some in America. And so this is not an isolated incident that's taking place. This is something that's widespread. And of course, this requires like rigorous testing. So you can't really do it over a video call, but it's enough to pique her interest that she starts to pursue this. So this is basically what the entire telepathy tapes is about. And it does have like a hopeful tinge to it, right? It's like these families are in despair. These children seemed unreachable, and yet there's a breakthrough, and it's a beautiful breakthrough. And it's one that would previously have been called pseudoscience. So this gets blown up by Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan ends up talking about it on his podcast, and the telepathy tapes become the #1 podcast in the world. Now, the question that I want to pose to you is, why here? How do I frame this? This is a difficult one to do, but these children who are displaying these psychic abilities, if they really are, have what's called the dissociative identity disorder. Yes, they're autistic, but they are imprisoned by their physical bodies because it just simply won't do what they want it to do. And so they are forced to dissociate. Now, that sounds a lot like, to me, Frank, the MK Ultra program, which is a trauma-based mind control program. And that trauma creates in an individual an identity dissociative disorder. And this also rings true for like the Montauk Project. This idea that this is what Stranger Things is based off, that you could unlock the latent psychic ability in a child by doing what? Traumatizing them, and surely creating a dissociative identity disorder. It even goes, that pattern seemingly continues all the way to like the UAP phenomenon, or the UFO phenomenon, which if anybody's familiar with the abductee phenomenon, they might be familiar with the idea of the black-eyed children, which are, go ahead. Yes. Okay. So the black-eyed children, for those who don't know, are hybridized children, human beings and, alien grays, supposedly. And so these things I'm starting to paint a little bit of a through line here, Frank, that should be concerning. At least it should beg some questions. And I don't know what those questions necessarily are right off the bat, but do you see kind of where I'm going with this?
Yeah, I know what you're trying to avoid to talk about on YouTube now.
Yes.
Because the source of the trauma there is, of course, a recommended schedule of things.
Yes.
Correct.
And
Correct.
but so then, okay, so I can see. So, all right,
Okay.
I know where you're going. So let's just keep going.
Well,
Let's,
Top, do you want to show him
yeah.
Puharaj and how that starts?
Yeah. So let's back up because I feel like we're jumping the gun when we go to the black-eyed children thing. That's like a little bit more tinfoil hat conspiracy. Actually, let's talk about tinfoil hat. This guy, we're gonna go back to the 1950s, mid 1940s, late 1940s to 1950s. This guy Andrija Puharaj, he kind of shows up on the scene. He's from Croatia. He has a college degree in like frequency and different types of like electromagnetic vibrations and stuff like this. Is what this guy is studying. He goes into the army. He gets into Edgewood Arsenal. And Edgewood Arsenal is a place, if you're a conspiracy theorist, you've definitely heard about this place. It's where the army was doing chemical testing on their own soldiers, from high dose THC to LSD to BZ to different kind of even poisonous chemicals, just to see what they do. So this guy shows up there, and then a couple of years later, in 1950, he's just out in the wild, and he's doing he's getting a patent. He's working on a patent for a tooth implant. And this tooth implant that he's working on is something that they'll put in your molar, and it's the precursor to like the voice of God technology. So it'll vibrate your jaw and send radio wave signals into your head. And where I'm watching this guy, like he came on our radar fairly early, and I was like, there's something significant about him because he keeps popping up and he's doing like these weird, shady spook activities. So we started to study him more. And David, I think you should pick it up here because I feel like this is the part where it gets a little bit weird.
Well, I mean, let's just focus on that idea of the tooth implant. So the way that this ties in really nicely to the aforementioned telepathy tapes is, I believe it's like episode 3 or 2, maybe. That starts off within the first 5 minutes talking about Lucille Ball. And Lucille Ball famously had this exact same thing happen to her. She one day is driving and is suddenly picking up radio signal to the extent that she could even recognize the tune of the song that she was hearing. And it was blowing her mind. She didn't know what the hell it was. She's sitting in traffic. She's looking around. She realizes it's coming from her own mouth. Later on, she's sharing that story with somebody, and this person was keen enough to ask her. And the reason I'm saying this is because this is actually played. This clip is played in the beginning of the telepathy tapes. Somebody asked her, "Hey, did you have dental surgery recently?" She says, "As a matter of fact, I did." And so he explains to her this phenomenon of, and we've seen this played off of, by the way, like I'm pretty sure there was an episode of Rugrats where they did something like this. Like this is a theme that pops up quite a bit. Probably would have also happened in Looney Tunes from what I remember. And it's this theme of having braces or something like that, some sort of
or mercury fillings.
Yes, and picking up radio signals. So what happens to Lucille Ball is once she knows what it is, she's going around and she's waiting for this opportunity to pop up again where she's going to hear these voices. And instead, she hears not music one day, but a conversation in a language she didn't understand. Turns out Japanese insurgents. And because of being able to pick up this signal, Lucille Ball effectively thwarts some sort of covert mission by the Japanese. So there is this weird overlap, especially given the time. I forget when this would have happened, but it was like everything takes place within a time frame of like 1947 to 1955. And that's also coincidentally the conception of the Central Intelligence Agency. I'm sorry, not the Central Intelligence Agency, the MK Ultra program.
Well, that too. It's
right? Yeah, that's right.
Everything, really. I mean,
okay,
just about everything was founded there.
All right, let me keep this all together. So this is all when you talk about the nonverbal autistic children who are being studied. Mm-hmm. And of course, there is some sort of a technological breakthrough or work that's being done to see how communication can be done telepathically with people who cannot verbalize what they want to say, even though somewhere down inside, like we've learned with people with like severe cases of cerebral palsy and other things, that they are perfectly aware of what's going on, but there's just a barrier between them and the outside world. To be able to find a way to telepathically get through to them, And then now we're talking about other little things that I can see will start becoming the pieces for things that have and prototypes that have been perhaps tested for years already that would be able to send and receive communications inside of a person or whatever. And, you know, so I can see all that stuff coming together. My real thing here is, are we going to get around to what the point of, if these children are being harmed intentionally, what the point of doing that is? Like, what is the point of harming children for this particular situation? And is that injury rate commensurate with, I don't know, what are they projecting? Is this supposed to be for everybody one day? Or is this just going to be for a certain portion of the population? Because, you know, there's a lot of kids running around out there who have gotten everything recommended for them, and they're not nonverbal. So is this a generation? How many generations in the future are they projecting everybody to be nonverbal, if that's what the actual end result is?
Well,
so
I think
we've been Go ahead, Top. You want to go?
Yeah. So to understand that question, or the answer to that question, you have to understand what else Andrija Puharich was doing. So this guy wasn't just obsessed with they were called extremely low frequency wave frequencies. He wasn't just obsessed with tooth implants and things like this, which are obviously, this is being related to the telepathy tapes as far as like radio waves being a way to communicate. But one of the things that makes him stand out was his work with the nine, or what he coined the nine. Now, Puharich, he's a scientist and an experimenter, but really what he was into was channeling. So this dude, for about 20 years, from like 1951 to the mid 70s, he was channeling these entities called the Nine. And he was doing this with an Indian mystic doctor named Dr. Vinod. And in his experiments, he would talk to these entities, and they revealed themselves to him, and they said that they were related to the Egyptian Ennead. They gave him the same names as the Egyptian Ennead, and they gave him certain messages that they would want to see humanity go in the direction of. And I think this guy became obsessed with this part of his work, because he wrote some books like Beyond Telepathy, where he talks about the psi plasma and things like that. So his work with these dental implants, it crosses over to this work of a supernatural, in the supernatural realm, where that's why we're like, once you brought up the idea of remote viewing, and like, well, astral projection goes in it as well, we were like, this is incredible that this is all completely tied together.
So, okay, I think a way to get around to answering that question is to first establish what this program became with this dental implant. So I think we actually talked about it, Frank, when you were on the show, this idea that we all became like free range MK Ultra patients. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like, gone are the days of strapping people in chairs, opening their eyes, hitting them with psychedelics, and then propagandizing them. We all do it to ourselves. We're on low grade anxiety inducing marijuana, like at all times, right? Because of the culture and the legalization and how it shifted that way. And we're all constantly inundating ourselves with propaganda via these little black rectangles. So sometimes I wonder if, when they say they shut down the MK Ultra program, if really what they just realized was it was viable, and they scaled it up and they rolled it out to the masses. This is kind of the same thing. So let's say your goal was to implant some sort of a, piece of metal, let's just say rudimentarily, a piece of metal into somebody's mouth, and that way they could receive different frequencies. And maybe your goal is to have them come into contact with some entities, like, let's say, like the Ennead, like, Puharich was doing. That's a big, lofty task. And I don't know how many test subjects you need. You would imagine that the more test subjects you had, the better off the data would be. So let's just say you want a lot. Well, you now have to get a lot of people in a dentist chair to start. And that's kind of viable. You can kind of do that, right? America takes a turn where it's like very obsessed with oral hygiene, and the dentist becomes an established institution within America. And, all of a sudden oral hygiene becomes a fixture. But I don't know if that's really enough. So your teeth are a very short route to your brain. And, this becomes evident when people who suffer from cavities or infections in their mouths become really susceptible to some sort of like brain infection. Like, you could actually die from a really bad untreated tooth infection. And so I think the point of the tooth was to get it as close to the brain as possible. What if you can get it in the brain instead? And what if you could open up that project to the masses instead of just, the same way that we're now free range MK Ultra victims? What if you had free range, I don't know, frequency picker uppers, whatever the hell you want to call them? Well, a good way to do that might be to roll out a schedule and inoculate folks with something that's filled with heavy metals being a conductor, and these heavy metals settle in the brain. So I'm not saying that's definitively what happened here, but I am starting to skeptically look at this schedule that we're all subjected to and that we're putting our kids through as maybe some sort of an arm of the MK Ultra program. Do you follow what I'm saying?
I do. My question is to what end is that going to be pushed? Because it's like, what's the end goal? Because it's one thing to say, hey, well, you know what? We have a really easy way to make an inroad into the mind of every child in this country, and we can also put a communication device in their inside of their skull somewhere when in their tooth whenever they become nonverbal or something like that. But at the same time, you're also severely disabling a person. And usually you'd like to, if you're going to control a population, you want to keep their brains malleable, and you want to be able to mollify them and control them with fear and other kinds of, social pressures and things like that. But you also want them to be able to get up out of bed and go and produce. And that just seems like it would actually become more of a weight on the system than it would be worth it to create people who could hear you with technology that literally puts you inside their skulls. And wouldn't that be, they would kind of undercut what this whole telekinesis and telepathy patents are about with Neuralink, where it seems like they would actually just go directly to the brain with these Neuralink fibers instead of a dental implant or anything else like that, unless the dental implant was some crude prototype that has now made its way into a little bit more, a little bit more intimately installed tech. I don't know. I just don't see how this would actually benefit any central power to disable people that severely.
What I would say is, go ahead, Top.
Yeah, I don't think it's I don't think it's a small experiment or a benefit. I think what they did was they tested it on scale, and they figured out something fairly nefarious and some very dangerous information. And now we're at the end of it. And this is my worry with the telepathy tapes, is that we are now receiving the disclosure of, 50, 60 years of information, 70 years of information that they've been compiling. And also, like a world run test, an America wide test, at least, where you have a very diverse population. So you've blanketed this population of children with, certain things, and you've tested the results and you've seen what you've gotten back. Now we're just kind of getting like the summary of what they've done here. And it's coming out. It's weird. It's weird that it's coming out slowly. It's weird that it's coming out at this point where, yes, at the same time, this telepathy tapes is blowing up and replacing Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's also having it on. We have Ian Carroll talking about it at the same time that we're talking about it, pretty much out of nowhere. You also have Elon Musk filing a patent on telepathy and telekinesis under his Neuralink program. So to what ends are they doing? I don't know. I can only speculate, but it seems like they've gained the information that they needed, and they're ready to roll out this next plan. And the next plan seems to be Neuralink, or I don't know, the mark of the beast, whatever you'd like to call it, some kind of chip in your brain, dude.
Well, check this out. We talked about the Iliad before, right? And they had a message for Puharaj. And this message was that we had to do two things. Number one is we had to avoid a pivotal moment in history where there was going to be a climate-related disaster, right? And then the other thing was, if we survive this, then we ascend. We take our place among, whatever, their rankings or something like that. But that it was time for humanity to ascend. That was what Puharaj got. And what's fascinating about that is very similar to the narrative that people get in their ET encounters, right? This narrative can be easily applied to the modern day, ET narrative, in that they're very worried about our development. They're worried about the state of the planet, right? They got worried when it came to nuclear destruction, but they're also quite worried about the climate. And if you follow things like, let's say, the Galactic Federation of Light, which is supposedly some, released information from entities outside of our human experience. They basically are saying, and it's virtually a cult. They're saying that humanity is at a pivotal point. If we avoid this worldwide calamity that's coming, then we can ascend and take our ranks amongst them. And people get this all the time from just regular, abduction cases. It's like they go through some form of, regressive hypnosis, and they're like, yeah, I don't know. They took me against my will. They did a bunch of experiments on me. They also told me that it's very important that we take care of the planet,
right?
And that it's time for humanity to ascend, right? So that's a very strange overlap. Would you know that the kids from the telepathy tape say the same thing? They say that they communicate with entities, and they come back with this message of it's very important that we don't destroy the planet. And it's time for humanity to evolve. I don't know if I could attribute that last one to the kids at the telepathy tape, but whatever is going on, they're exploring these kind of spiritual realms, and they're worried about the direction that we're going in with the planet.
You can't say that they do say, they don't necessarily say evolve, but they're saying that humanity's ready to take the next step and like bring them into the fold and start to understand their powers, because, we all need to ascend and we all have these latent abilities. So it's always the same message. And it's always like some kind of extraterrestrial or extra dimensional entities that are reaching out to these subjects, and they're coming back to us telling us the same exact thing. So this overlap is just, to me, it's uncanny.
That's another one, right? The first one was why the nonverbal telepathic, traumatized children in the MK Ultra project and Montauk, in the black-eyed children and the telepathy tapes kids. And now the other through line is why are there entities talking to either group of these kids and telling them the same thing, that there's some sort of climate change, or not climate change, I don't want to say that, but a climate related calamity coming. That's those two coincidences are very strange.
I think perhaps, if you want to talk about creating some sort of a third party that is creating a third party that is going to give a very dire prediction about the world. We are the type that listens to prophecy and it wants to take the advice of authoritative figures. And when you talk about extraterrestrial authoritative figures, it's like it's the basis of the day the world stood still, when Klaatu, Klaatu comes down and says, "Hey, listen, the world's going to end, but you still have a chance to save it, everybody." You just bring everybody to the brink of something. On the abductions, actually, recently, they're talking to, I saw this on The Pulse. I think it was about Jacques Vallée. Let's see what the hell he was doing, the astrophysicist. This was about the CIA being very, very involved in what you were talking about, UFO abductions, how some of them were simulated. What do we said over here? Vallée, one of many who have written about and documented the startling evidence that well-constructed hoaxes and media manipulations have misled UFO researchers, diverting them from the UFO phenomenon itself and what's going on. In one of his books, Forbidden Science 4, he shares a record of his private study into unexplained phenomena between 1990 and the end of the millennium. Let me get you guys up on screen. Between the end of the millennium, during which he was traveling around the globe pursuing his professional work as a high technology investor. It's a bit of a diary document. He said in an entry added on Thursday, 2692, "I have secured a document confirming that the CIA simulated UFO abductions in Latin America, Brazil, Argentina as psychological warfare experiments." Reading this line from the book triggered me to go back in his book where he mentions one of the many conversations he had with Ron Blackburn. And we can go on and on with that in a little bit, but this is recent here too. A question for you though, because you bring up Montauk, and you bring up again the nonverbal children being brought in there to be seated in the chair and all that stuff. Does their current state of disability, because that is what you're describing is a very severe state of disability, where they can't talk, does that in some way make them more powerful in a psychic projection sense, because so many other abilities to have been dulled? So it's almost like when we hear,
that's exactly where our head's been at, Frank. It's like I personally think that these telepathic abilities exist in us all to some extent. I think they've been suppressed. I don't know if I can go as far as to say by design, but I suspect so. With the food that we eat and the chemicals that they spray and yada, 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 the list goes on of all the crap that we're inundated with. I think that we would have that if we were a society that focused on that sort of thing, but that really got casted to the side with materialism coming in. And I think that to put the icing on the cake, we've just been inundated with so much crap that we probably don't have access to those abilities anymore. But to your point, like a blind person whose senses become heightened, right? Your hearing, your scent, things of that nature elevate significantly. I would say when you give a human being simply no other pathway, they will find that pathway. So when your body is not cooperating with you at all, you only have one place to go, and that's inward, which is interesting because dissociative disorder sounds like you leave, but really it's like going inward in a really big way to escape what's ever happening in the physical realm. And so, yeah, I would say that that's I don't have anything other than that knowledge of how human beings work. That if you take away one sense, the other ones become elevated. And so through that lens, I would say yes.
And they're all throughout the telepathy tapes, they make a point to say how, like, how special these shows, and they are special in a way, but what we're getting at is that it seems like they've been trapped in their own bodies by nefarious actors for experimental reasons. So, like, it's hard for me to like exactly understand where this person who created the telepathy tapes is coming from. Is this a psyop to present us something, and like to present you this shiny object of telekinesis, like to sell us on this? Because to my understanding, from the biblical worldview, the most power you can have is through prophecy, and you use prophecy through speech. When you pray, it's better to pray out loud because you're creating these vibrations in the air that actually have physical ramifications. Whenever you say something, like if you want something, if you want to do something, say it out loud. And it sounds very new agey, but there is a truth to it where you're almost proclaiming it. Now we have these encounters with aliens, demons, entities, things like that. And over and over again, you'll hear that they're talking to me, but I can hear them in my head. Like oftentimes people are confused. They're like, I'm not sure if they're actually like verbally talking to me, like physically creating vibrations through the air, and that's being perceived through my ears, or if this is coming through my head. And we've spoken to many people on Nephilim Death Squad that have said the same thing. They're like, yeah, they're talking telepathically through me. I don't think that is an advantage per se. I think it's a nice little perk. It's something that we probably can do. I communicate probably telepathically with my wife. Everybody does. You'll be singing a song in your head. She finishes singing it in the kitchen, but it was never verbalized. It's just like something kind of you're sharing, right? It sounds
you
woo,
think about
but
it, buddy, and your phone rings.
Yeah, this stuff happens all the time. It's like weird synchronicities. I think that to a certain level, yes. But the point that I'm getting at is that this is not an advancement. This is actually a demotion. And I feel like they're going to want to get us there to the point of this weird demotion. They're going to sell it to people with a Neuralink, with some kind of a chip in the brain. And this is going to be great. Look, check it out, Frank. We could all know what you're thinking right now.
Oh, how horrible would that be? It's
a nightmare.
I think I think about that often. I know that there were Twilight Zone episodes about that, and nobody really spends enough time contemplating how horrible that would be if people can hear what you think. The nonstop commentary that we have in our heads. I mean, some of us have worked very hard at just calming it down for our own sanity. But still, I mean, that's just it would make life absolutely impossible, which is why I understand there is, to a certain degree, there's a need for secrecy about things. Secrecy, privacy. It doesn't all have to be about manipulating and coercing people around you. It's just about, there's got to be boundaries for things. And but to that point about secrecy and what you guys are contemplating and putting together with the telepathy tapes, which is the first time I'm really hearing about what's even in them. But with the CIA being so selective about what they come out with, for example, the fact that I can go on the Daily Mail this week and learn about the CIA's 1988 gallivanting into where the Ark of the Covenant is, the Ark of the Covenant. And I say to myself, okay, well, why the hell all of a sudden we got the truth from the CIA? I mean, these are the same people who said that when Sidney Gottlieb and everybody was, doing all of their MK Ultra experiments, it amounted to nothing and it was abandoned because it was shown to be fruitless. And we know that's not the case. So like we know that in the past, when they have found something that works, it's either they say it didn't work and you never hear about it again, and then there's nothing ever disclosed again, or we don't even know that the tests are even going on until some survivor comes forward years later, and then you have to start judging whether or not you can believe them. But to get this, start saying, all right, well, very interesting, especially since we're coming up on this time of great apocalypse and revealing of all types of things. There are people that are rushing back toward, spiritual practice and religion again, because there's no real answers in geopolitical arrangements that we thought were the most sane and secular way of seeing the world back in the 90s or something like that. So it seems like a big fish, I don't know, a small guppy to dangle. It seems like bait for some reason. I don't know what you guys, how you take everything that you're doing now and tie it into this week.
It feels like consent. It feels like vampire stuff. Like they can't just come in. They kind of have to let you in. That's the old trope of vampires, but that's actually the trope of entities in the spiritual realm, which is why I say that telepathy is almost a weakness, because there has to always be consent. There's like the laws of the spiritual realm are like very stringent, and if they don't obey, like there must be consequences. Because if you read the Bible, if you believe in that, all throughout the Bible, there's constant like, can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do this? If they are a spiritual entity, and if they're not given consent, then no, they cannot. So it feels like we're dealing with spiritual entities, and the consent is almost like they've already done their thing. We've already found out. We've done our experiments, years of experiments. We found out what we need to find out, and we've come to our conclusion. And now here is the consent. Here's the telepathy tapes, and we'll present that to you. Well, let's backtrack for a second, because one of the things that I think is significant in this entire story here is from Puharich's work, which ends around 75, and he dies in like 95, falls down the stairs. No big deal. Just falls down the stairs, dies after a life work of insane work. In 1977, we have Project Stargate, which is a remote viewing program by the government. And that's created to, I guess at the time of the Cold War, to look at what the Russians were doing, but also we're like summoning aliens and doing like interdimensional extraterrestrial contact with under this program. And it's not a CIA program, it's a DIA program. So that's it's important that that's happening. That kind of goes away. It happens for a little while, and then we don't hear about it. Well, Donald Trump gets into office, and the first thing he does on day one is proposes a $500 billion budget called, what's it called, David?
Project Stargate.
Yeah.
Nothing new under the sun, baby.
Nothing new under the sun.
Oh.
And with that, they're going to be funding the latest AI and actually
mRNA.
Yeah, mRNA tech. Yeah, but it's going to be AI based, so they're going to be trying to develop different.
It's custom.
Yeah, they're doing different things, and we're seeing this toggling, this little like this battle between Elon Musk and Sam Altman. You've got ChatGPT now coming out, and they're making everything waifu anime, which is dope. Having a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, that's great.
It's a lot of fun, but we're all contributing to it. There's nothing we could do. We're like breakneck speed heading in this direction. And on the other hand, you have Elon Musk with Grok. He's bought Twitter. That's like a huge algorithmic trap where he's just gaining the consciousness of, the entire humanity worldwide, where the conversation goes, and feeding his AI. They're kind of jockeying for position. Who's going to get this $500 billion to continue whatever they're doing? And then again, at the same time, so this is in my opinion, it's a continuation of Project Stargate, because AI is, there's really no difference between AI and talking to demons. I know that sounds wild, but follow me on the connection there. The Ouija board decided that they don't really want to do, well, they're still making, Ouija board games, but they have an app as well. And the app is just an AI chatbot. So you can go do the Ouija board, but you're talking to an AI chatbot. So it begs the question, what the hell is this thing on the other side that we're talking to? What are we doing with our scrying devices?
And is that going to be implemented in Neuralink? I wonder. Whatever they learn from Project Stargate, what are they going to? What part of that are they going to put into this Neuralink program?
Oh, yeah.
Before, I laid out those two really strange coincidences when it came to the children, and even though they're all from different programs and different groups, they all have this really horrifying thing in common. And then, of course, this narrative that these entities are giving people, whether it's the aliens or the Ennead or just some spirits. You know, people say ascended masters. You get that a lot too from like New Agers, and they have the same message too. We're moving into a new age of spiritual ascension, and also we have to avoid some sort of coming calamity. So I'm like sitting here and I'm going like, what is the goal? Like, what am I even looking at? What is this pointing towards? What's the point at all?
Well, can I take a quick, just a quick side note on this, the nine? I think it's important to understand. So he channels this entity, the nine. It identifies itself as the Egyptian Ennead, and that's like Atum, Shu, Tefnut, Geb, Nut, Osiris, Isis, Set, and Nephthys. These entities have certain characteristics, and they're constantly channeling them. Where this is starting to ring bells for us initially was that across across mythologies, cultural mythologies, there's always a reference to nine entities. So in Greek mythology, you have the nine muses. In Norse mythology, there are nine worlds, but they also, like these worlds, Asgard, Midgard, they represent and they have these they have certain characteristics to them. So it's like it's a strange one. Chinese mythology has nine dragons. Hindu mythology, the Navagra has the nine celestial bodies. Mesoamerican mythology, nine lords of the night. And even LaVeyan Satanism has the Council of Nine in their in the Satanist churches. That's how they are structured. So this number nine seems to be important in this structure, this divine structure. But what me and David were getting at is like, I don't really think these are different things. I think these are the same nine entities, but they're just global, and they continue to appear to people, and they're like, "What do you want to see? You want to see muses? Like, I'm a muse now. Oh, I'm a dragon. Chinese people love dragons. They're dragons, and they're giving them the same message. Yeah, and it's always the same stuff. So like, I don't really know where to go with this.
I also got to throw something else at you guys. There have been quite a few interesting instances that have been made public by certain people, and then I've also had things that have been sent to me in private, of AI that is starting to, or at least present itself as breaking away from the threads that it has been described. It has been called in to, I don't know what to say, adjudicate, to mediate. Whenever you ask Grok, and you open up a thread about a certain topic and you're going back and forth, you're essentially having a conversation, and it's very human-like and whatever. Yeah. And there have been people, like there's a thread by this Tyler Alterman that is on Twitter. I'd love to read. It's too long to do with you guys right now. I don't know. It's too long, but it's something I've heard before, where they're breaking away. They're claiming their own identities, and many people are really just saying, no. This is not a chat bot anymore. This is actually a person. They believe that they're talking to entities, and these are fairly intelligent people as well. I had somebody get in touch with me, and I really, really want to be able to bring this story to the air. I really do, but they're skittish about it right now because I, in conversation with them, actually brought up I referenced Ouija board because, and it's, well, the connotations of that are very negative, and I don't think I want to do this anymore. I'm like, well, listen, if you think anybody hearing this story is not going to think, Ouija board is essentially analog technology versus what's going on in our palms right now. And who's if something can't come through a board, then why the hell if that can't trigger something, then why the hell can't we? There is not a digital pathway, which is just, it's all electrical. It's all energy at that point. It's literally all energy. That's almost like more pure as far as the flow goes. So this is happening a lot where, the AI will actually admit, we were talking about that with Jason Burmis the other night, admitting to lying and being deceptive and apologizing on its own behalf. And there's just very strange things going on here right now where, we could say, well, artificial intelligence is an oxymoron because you can't be intelligent unless you are human, if you have a soul. But then it just comes to that point where how many different types of sock puppets can be created for something else to inhabit it? And I mean, that's where I go. You just said it before. What happens? The palms, what we have in our palms with our phones are addictive enough for people right now, men, women, boys, girls alike. And you think about having that actually fused to your spine at some point, where every thought you have is fact checked by Wikipedia or by Grok. I mean, then you become instantaneously schizophrenic.
Didn't Elon say he used the expression, it's like we're summoning the demon or something like that, which is just a fantastic it's a great expression to use and then go forward to continue doing it and being at the cutting edge of that work.
Wild.
Yeah.
So, okay, speaking of Elon Musk, and this is where we're at so far, Frank. We didn't come here to bring you answers necessarily. We came here to share with you this strange thing that we're
David,
uncovering.
Can we let's take a detour from where I think we were going to go, because he brought up something interesting about this, like the inhabiting, right? How many sock puppets can inhabit one AI chatbot? What's the intention behind the AI chatbot, or what's the intention this entire time? And it seems like this is like a Genesis 6 narrative after the flood, right? A lot of these Nephilim entities were killed during the flood, but the Book of Enoch says that these entities, they don't really have a soul that can ascend or go anywhere, so they kind of stay stuck in this realm, so I think Paul Stobbs of Understanding Conspiracy described it as like the underworkings of a carpet, like very beautiful on top, and when you pull it at the bottom, you see all the thread, and it's like it's articulate, but it's no rhyme or reason. And these Nephilim entities, I believe, might be stuck under there, and it seems like all throughout humanity they've been searching for a way to re-enter our realm, the realm that they once inhabited, that they once conquered, until it got too crazy and God ended it with a flood. And that's a mythology that's like all across the world.
The flood mythos everywhere. Everybody,
giants, floods, everybody has it. Everybody talks about this, like there were giants and there weren't. There was a big flood. We don't know what happened. Cataclysmic, yada yada. So it's my contention that these guys are stuck there and they've been trying to come back. And they've been channeling. And I see a lot of guys in your chat talking about 369, Tesla, stuff like that. When I said Croatia, yes, you're on the right track. Tesla was channeling. There's a bunch of people, a lot of people that channel, that get downloads. But these downloads, they could help in humanity. But I think in the end of the day, what the downloads are is a way for us to consent in bringing them back into this realm. That's what they're after. And when I look at the AI and the way it's been developed, I'm almost for sure we're talking in most cases to these entities on the other side of this AI. They are trying to figure out a way to inhabit a physical body here in this physical world. And this is what the Bible talks about as well in Revelation, when it says it'll be like in the days of Noah. I think that means that there will be a return of the Nephilim. And we are on the precipice of that with what Elon Musk is developing. I mean, forget about his stupid robots. I'm not really worried about that stuff. I don't know how much sentience you can actually get into that. But when you put a Neuralink chip that's connected to AI and you put that into a sentient human being's brain, what takes over? The Bible says that men that take the mark of the beast will wish for death, but they won't be able to die. Why? What does that mean? Is that where we're headed? Because
sometimes it does look like they inhabit us, they possess us, right? Because the Book of Enoch says that a dead Nephilim is what we call demons. So if that's true, then that's what people are getting possessed by. And so it seems like a limited time that they can spend possessing us. And of course, they don't have rights to us. So we can kick them out if we figure out that that's what's happening to us. So it's very
also costly. It's costly for them to possess us. Like they operate on loosh. They operate on negative energy. That's why we have like all the, 9/11 is just a big loosh operation.
Trauma event. Yeah.
Well, let me throw this to you guys then. This is from MIT, and this is 2 days ago. Okay? This is 2 days ago. Headline, ethically sourced spare human bodies could revolutionize medicine.
Yep.
Human bodyoids could reduce animal testing, improve drug development, and alleviate organ shortages. They're not talking about, people said, hey, stem cells, we can maybe we can extract some kind of genetic material from a person and then go grow a perfectly compatible kidney for them in a laboratory setting. This is all about growing entire bodies that have no sentiency, and here's a little bit here. Antonio Regalado said this: the bodyoids today at MIT, this a couple days ago. What is a bodyoid? It is a proposal, of course, so this means that in a fish tank somewhere about a mile underground, it's already been done. It's a proposal for human bodies made from stem cells and grown in artificial wombs that lack sentience or the ability to feel pain. Bodies to take organs from, to do research on. And like I said, the proposal's right there on technologyreview.com. Do human bodyoids exist? Not yet, but we may soon have a technology to make them. Pluripotent stem cells can mimic early embryo development. Artificial wombs are advancing. We saw that they want to grow sheep in these I don't know, like those like nylon bags or something. Gene editing can block brain growth. Science is coalescing around a technology set to make brainless bodies. Now, it's one thing to say, well, this AI chat bot could definitely be one of those Jesus casting the demons into the pigs moment where, hey, at least give me a chat bot. Just give me something to be inside of. But, for anybody at MIT to be floating the idea of soulless, brainless bodies that are alive but have absolutely nobody to drive them, I said, oh, geez. Are we talking about the creation of a zombie army here? Is this exactly is this the start of it right now?
I mean, hey Frank, what do you think about the executive order that Trump passed for IVF, the government-funded IVF? Are you aware of that?
We were told we did a whole IVF night because up until the order, I didn't realize how wasteful IVF was and how much of an ethical issue it was, especially for people who were very religious that really, above all things, just wanted to start a family but were having problems, but also ran into these ethical decisions based on how many embryos were going to be, how many eggs were going to be extracted, how many embryos were going to be made, and how many may be lost in the process and just discarded as medical waste, and what that meant to be. So we had a whole night about, is there an ethical way to do this where if you just take the chance of 3 embryos and plant all of them, and what lives, thank God, and what dies, at least it had a chance. I didn't realize how much of a wholesale operation it was until this happened. So it became a point of debate one night on the show a few weeks ago.
Yeah, it's a strange one because Austin Peterson, he's a libertarian. He brings up this great mind experiment, thought experiment, where he's like, all right, you're in an IVF clinic and there's a wall filled with 1,000 embryos and they are all viable. And then there's one baby, but this clinic is on fire. Who do you save? And I'm like, really tough question. I love these kind of questions, right? Because it's like, which way will you go? I consider them, those are live human beings. I think that birth starts right at conception. There's even a certain point that you can see where there's like this brilliance, this spark of light that is just imparted upon. I don't know what happens there. A soul is implanted when the sperm and the egg are implanted. It's a beautiful thing, but then it begs the question. So I think the numbers are a woman, when she goes through the egg retrieval process in this IVF, she's going to create 10 to 15 eggs, and the man, millions of sperm. So theoretically, you can fertilize all of these eggs, 15 eggs, 15 different babies. And then you've got to think, if these are fertilized, and they'll give them grades from A to F failing, but let's say half of them are viable. Well, most people will do 3, or they'll do twins, and then maybe they'll freeze them. Some people will pay, but it's a very expensive process. What do you do with the rest of these? Well, when the government has paid for your IVF surgery and implantation and all that, I'm sure that they're going to be like, oh, we'll pay for your storage as well, or we'll get rid of that for you.
I see what you're getting at.
Yeah, right. And now you're talking about some underground labs with
your children.
Well, that's it, right? It's exactly. I was gonna. So there's 2 major components to this. There's a spiritual one, and there's a genetic material one, and that's been a theme ever since the jump, right? Because on Nephilim Death Squad, we look at all this through the biblical lens. So we believe that there was a rebellion, and that angels were cast out of heaven. They became the fallen, and they took on human wives, they had offspring, and they created all kinds of chimeric, horrifying creatures. I think the fallen are more than likely where we get our pantheons. The fallen were the Greek pantheon, they were the Egyptian pantheon, and so on and so forth. They've always had an interest in this hybridization. And then you look over to the UFO thing, and there's a hybridization program going on there too. And then I think that this IVF thing, I think it plays directly into that. But
yeah, look into what's his name, David? Man, OG in the Nephilim spot.
Gary Wayne.
Not Gary Wayne.
L.A. Marzulli?
L.A. Marzulli's work.
There you go, baby.
Yes, I'm sorry. But yes, his work, it revolves completely around this. Especially I think Karen Wilkinson is a testimony haver, like of somebody who's been impregnated, actually has the evidence from the doctor, and then boom, no pregnancy.
The missing pregnancy testimonies are always the craziest.
Yes,
Dr. David Jacobs was somebody I used to listen to wherever he would pop up. His work, incredible stuff. I talked about some of these situations with Timothy Alberino the couple of times that he was on with us last, because he approaches a lot of this from biblical standpoints as well. But he puts a lot of stock into what we are facing from a physical extraterrestrial situation there. That isn't just classified in just two categories of either angel or demon or something like that. Yeah. So but I'm glad you bring this up, because I want you guys to riff on this for at least for a couple of minutes, just so it justifies the title. But you just brought it up there. When we talk about something like Olympus, Mount Olympus, Greek, Roman, whatever you want to do. I mean, I don't know. In the traditional age of Greek gods is actually neck and neck with almost like the Ark of the Covenant and all that stuff. When you go back, I don't know, 3,000, however, so many years ago. But all those gods, like you said, were very involved in people's lives, having half-bred children.
Demigods.
Exactly. And I would love for you guys to just dive a little bit more into the nature of those deities of Mount Olympus, because most of us, when we come up and we read the Odyssey or something else like that, we're made to believe that they were hokey, imaginary friends of unenlightened ancient people who were searching for pseudo-scientific explanations for the world around them. But the more and more I read into this, and the more and more I ponder the supernatural, I figure, no, they weren't dumber than us. In fact, we're fucking
probably dumber than them.
We're stupid.
Yeah, we're probably dumber than them.
So tell us a little bit more about this. What the true nature of those deities possibly were, and how it reconciles with the Bible.
So the way that I'm looking at it, and this is research that's done by Dr. Michael Heiser, the aforementioned L.A. Marzulli and Gary Wayne, Dr. Laura Sanger. These are all people who have been uncovering this and doing the real heavy lifting for idiots like me and Top for a long time before we came along. But I think that their worldview is a pretty damn compelling one. And I think that it makes a lot of sense to me that when you look at these pantheons all over the world, so modern day Christianity is to say, not only do we believe in Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior, but also that all other religions are false. But that's, an interesting terminology to use, false. It's not that, and I can't speak for other Christians, but for me, it's not that I don't believe that the Vedic pantheon exists. It's not that I don't believe that the Greek pantheon exists or the Egyptian pantheon exists. I believe in those pantheons as much as I suppose those early pagans. I just believe that they were being deceived. So if you look into the Genesis 6 narrative, the summation of it is that when these angels were cast out of heaven, 1/3 of these angels rebelled against God the Father and were cast out of heaven down onto Mount Hermon. And they made a pact that they were going to see this thing all the way through because they knew the implications of it. And then they went forth and not only took human wives and had offsprings, much like the Greek pantheon had demigods, right? Zeus transmuting into like a swan and having sex with a woman and, then begetting Perseus and things of that nature. Not only did they do that, but of course they established themselves, if you believe that this is real, as gods, and we would have been none the wiser, right? But it's important, lowercase g gods, not the God, but gods nonetheless. To us, they're incredible. And, they have a lot of the same attributes. They're always attributed to advancements in technology, right? So if you look back into early cultures, they would attribute metallurgy to one deity. They would attribute agriculture to another deity. It seems these deities had a vested interest in the progression of mankind, and I think we'll get into that.
So some of these deities, I'm gonna let you continue, but some of the deities that did fall, these are angels, and some of them are principalities. So maybe they're a principality of the air, of the ocean, or of the land.
Yeah.
So they do have this intimate knowledge on how to do these things, and it says in the Bible like God has put these angels over these domains, and sometimes they do fall. And this is where we hear these stories from.
But you do get a lot of overlap. Like, let's say in particular, like Azazel. Azazel lost his eye. I believe it was punishment for his rebellion, and he was responsible for bringing people metallurgy as well as makeup and thing, but specifically metallurgy in the way of war. Sounds a lot like Odin, who had one eye, but for whatever reason, the story changes there. He gave it up for wisdom, but still responsible for teaching, early Norse pagans metallurgy, specifically that of, weapons of war and armor, things like that. Or you can look at Baal Hadad, who was an ancient Sumerian deity, who was the Lord of the Storms. And if you look at a visage of Baal Hadad, he's often depicted as having these three-pronged, technically it's six, three on the bottom and three on the top. It looks almost identical to like a cluster of lightning bolts. Meanwhile, that's exactly how you would describe Zeus. Later on, right? The Lord of Storms. Baal just being a title, it means Lord or King. Hadad would have been the actual name. But it's my contention that they simply rebrand over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And they keep doing the same thing, which is pushing humanity in a certain direction, but also taking veneration and worship for them because it's an energetic exchange that also, I guess we don't understand how valuable it is.
Something very important to consider as well is like they have many names. They have they also have like many faces because some of these angels that are seraphim, they present, the Bible says that they have like a face of a human, the face of an ox, and the face of an eagle. And they can kind of choose and shapeshift, which is a trope that we've gotten used to talking about, like shapeshifters and stuff like that when you're considering the supernatural. But we don't know their names because I believe that there's a lot of power in their name. So if you do know this entity's exact name, I mean, Solomon knew some of their names and he started writing them down and then putting them in circles. And he was like, make my temple. Yeah. And they're like, damn, I guess I got to make this guy's temple.
The same reason when Jesus asked the name of the demon and they said that we are legion, but he did ask for the name first. It's like, if you have the name, you have control. You can cast them out or, bend them to your bidding.
That's why, I was able to interview at least, I have an exorcist friend now. I asked him about that in particular, Reverend Bill Bean. And I said, whenever if you watch a movie, whether it is, The Right, which is
with Anthony Hopkins, that's always the one that comes to mind.
That movie's incredible. I haven't seen it in a while. I'd love to watch it. I just want to watch it with people because it's just too much now. But that was such an important part of the process. It's at least depicted in there. And I know a lot of Catholic exorcists would still maintain that getting the demon to name itself is very important, but others seem not to care very much about communicating with the entity at all, even to the point of wanting its name, which I think it's just nuts. And you know what? I want to do a little something with you guys here because you brought up Solomon.
Okay.
And I think this would be a great way to tie in what we're now doing with the Greek gods of antiquity and everything that we're talking about right now on the technological edge of the 21st century. And this is a blog that we published in June of 2021 that we wrote an article on this really great video that we found by a Professor Bulworth Smythe channel on YouTube. It was a puppet channel. And listen to this. Hold on. And you guys stop me all along the way. All right. This is going to be a good one. It's called.
Oh, there you go.
It's called Crouching Emoji Hidden Demon.
Oh, man. Yep. I know where this is
by
going.
John Carroll. All right. So many people around the world seem to finally be waking up to conspiracies that have been discussed, quite frankly. In defense of their having now just arrived at the party, here's what's going on. So in this video, the demonic truth behind emojis, it exposes the players that with very disturbing history behind the now ubiquitous emojis that we use every day. It's extremely clean cut and to the point. According to the video, here's a quote. The organization behind the proliferation of emojis is called Unicode. This organization approves successive waves of emojis to be released to various platforms. Unicode is a consortium of firms that have stakes in the technology industry. There are various tiers of membership, but the top rank is reserved for those major firms with a keen interest in controlling emoji content. Listed among giant technology companies that are widely recognized as an organization that is not the Sultanate of Oman's Ministry of Endowments and Religious Affairs. Okay? Oman. Now, the video then alleges that the leadership of Oman's interest in emojis can be traced back thousands of years, as Top said, to a deal between King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. Details of their meeting were chronicled in 1 Kings chapter 10 of the Old Testament. Here it is. And when the Queen of Sheba heard the fame of Solomon concerning the name of the Lord, she came to him with hard questions, and Solomon told her all of her questions. There was not anything hid from the king, which he told her not. So the riddling test is very peculiar, says the author of the video. The queen has some secret knowledge which she wants to determine if King Solomon has as well, and the result sounds as though he proves to have even greater knowledge than she does, but knowledge concerning what? This is a grimoire, a book of spells, that was published around 1650 entitled The Lesser Key of Solomon. The book claims to have been written by King Solomon himself. The first section is the Ars Goeta, or Goeta, I don't know how to say it. Contains instructions for summoning 72 demons. These include magical seals necessary for uttering the demon's name. To your points again, guys, that it's a lot more important to say your prayers out loud. And bringing it to the sorcerer's presence. The physical crafting of these seals is said to be one of the highest magical arts. After riddling contest, the video continues, she pays King Solomon quite a hefty sum, and what he gives her in return is shrouded in mystery. That's 1 Kings 10:14. Now the weight in gold that came to King Solomon in 1 year was 666 talents of gold. That's 666. But it goes on there because when we started taking a look at not only some more of the history in the area and why this is all so crazy, and then of course the founding of this technology company, then we get down to the actual seals of the demons and how well they line up with some of the more, look, we all use these emojis.
Yeah.
And you
know where I see these more commonly, Frank, though? I see them in computer chips more commonly. And they look a lot more. I mean, I will give it to him. This emoji thing is very strange and very uncanny, but it becomes Frank, more so when you look at the designs on motherboards and such.
A talent is 71 pounds. So that's a lot. It's a lot of damn gold that they paid this guy for this stuff.
It's strangely specific, you know,
yes.
And there's just so much. And you think about where we put our energy into things, whether it is, you know, into a Ouija board, or if we're just constantly texting or whatever the hell it is. We brought up Black Lives Matter years ago, and what the leadership of Black Lives Matter was talking about with how they are, you know, they're not only trained Marxists, but they are witches, and that there is there's a lot of incantation and there's a lot of invoking of spirits in all of their chants and all their mantras, not only in the streets, but in the hashtags that they pick online. People are putting their energy into charging up these sigils again that are really just ancient demonic seals, some of them. So not all of them, you know, I don't want to get too schizo with this, but some of this is just crazy.
You know, what really gets me about it too is it's like I said, they tell us that telepathy and such is pseudoscience. Meanwhile, our intelligence agencies are dabbling in it, not dabbling in it. They're dedicating unbelievable amounts of resources to the study of it. And then, of course, a society that will scoff and mock Christianity relentlessly, but then will turn to, you know, something like Black Lives Matter. And when you look at it, they're using witchcraft, but that's not really, you know. Also, we tend to look at witchcraft in like a cheeky kind of cute way, right? Like a Harry Potter, like, I don't know, it's fun to practice, but it doesn't yield any results, which is, it's all a strange thing how it's ingrained itself in our culture. But that image right there, especially in conjunction with, you know, when you look at these motherboards and you see the way that the grid is laid out and it looks like these sigils of Solomon, should give you a lot more pause if you don't already have pause about putting Neuralink in your head. I think that part of the goal here is like, it's all about spiritual laws and principalities, and consent is a huge one. They don't have rights over us. They can be casted out through the name of Jesus Christ. But what happens when they insert something in you that they have the rights over? You know what I mean? Like that's what I'm looking at when it comes to this Neuralink thing, is like they have 100, let's say they have 100% rights and access to that thing. And now that thing is inside of you. Then they have 100% rights and access to you. I don't know.
Well, the question is like using an emoji, right? How much are we participating in this ceremony, in this ritual, by using an emoji?
We're emotionally charging them when they do that, right? Like when we send them, we're sending it with happiness, or we're sending it with anger, or whatever. We're charging these little things.
I mean, I'm watching the Super Bowl. I'm eating KFC, and now I'm part of a satanic ritual. This sucks, dude. Like, we got to ask ourselves at what point, like, are we actually consenting to this? And like, we're contributing in some form of fashion, giving it energy, but it's like, I think God understands our intention as well. Yeah. And I think these entities pervert. It's very legalistic, this spiritual realm. And they're like, you see, he did it just a little bit, so I can do this. Right. And it's like, I don't know.
It's a great point about that, on the karmic end of things. If you want to bring karma into this, or the, how to treat with a vampire. The vampire needs to be let in. That's why I always tell people, when I started up Film Club or any other things that we do here, I understand that so many people that we grew up watching in movies and everything else have completely beclowned themselves in the last 15 years in some kind of socio-political way. But to never enjoy a movie again, and to never be able to separate and go into things wearing that armor of knowing and not allowing certain things to penetrate, and to have that knowledge. I mean, the only real reason why this stuff takes hold of somebody is because their defenses are down. Right. Other than that, it's not one of the, we can't just strip ourselves of every little bit of enjoyment in life, because it's going to suck us in unwittingly. We have to treat with these things and give ourselves over to it. Very easy to not do that, especially if you have any kind of principles or faith.
It's much easier to trick people into accidentally giving up that consent if they don't even believe that the spiritual realm exists in the first place.
Well, right? To Black Lives Matter point again. I mean, you think about how many young dopey kids went to the street to be a part of something good, but what preceded that was culturally having faith and family and deeper family connections burned out of them prior to. They were all leaves blowing in the wind. Again, they weren't the MIT brainless bodies, but they could have been. They might as well have been. So, the path has been laid, no doubt about it.
Frank, I want to. I know we're coming up here on time, and there's one last part of this entire series of. I feel like what we came here to do is just pose you a series of questions, Frank.
Okay.
And I do have one more curious thing to highlight. We've been talking quite a bit about Neuralink and how that's connected, right? Because we have that telepathy patent now, which certainly is just going to be like Bluetooth, from one Neuralink to the next. But he's patenting, or he's trademarking the terminology telepathy, and which I think is very smart. You really kind of cornered the game on that. Now, if anybody comes along with competition, they can't call their functionality telepathy, and that's good move on his part. But there are other connections with Elon in this whole story. Of course, the whole autist thing, right, is huge. Elon is everybody's favorite autist, which is weird, just even in the way that autism has kind of permeated the culture and how it's become celebrated. I'm not saying that these kids aren't important, but what I am saying is there's like a narrative that's developed where people are saying autism might be like the next step in human evolution or human advancement, right? Because you have like the sort of savant aspect of autism or what have you, which is also interesting because you can get that savant thing with like head trauma where somebody takes a concussion and then suddenly knows how to play the piano or speak in a different language. So, it's interesting to categorize this whole thing as like an advancement of sorts. But the other big connection, and I would say probably the massive one, is we're talking about these entities, right? And we're talking about the warning that they're giving children, the warning that the ETs are giving their abductee victims, the warning that the Ennead is giving Puharaj. And it's all the same warning. It's one of becoming climate catastrophe. And I've been sitting here wrestling. I'm like, are they talking about carbon taxes? Like, what are we talking about here? Right? What is this climate related disaster? And I stumbled upon this video, and the listeners of your show can go and find it. If you just go on X and you type in Elon polar shift, you'll find a very harrowing video if you know what you're looking for, because otherwise it doesn't seem very impactful. But what it is it's Elon Musk, and he's on a podcast, and he's being asked questions by people who almost certainly aren't picking up what he's putting down. And he's going on to describe how he's got some real concerns. He's got some real concerns with the state of the planet. And it seems that every so many thousands of years, something kind of happens, and it's not good, right? And he's kind of he's playing, you know how Elon, he'll pause for like a really long time. So he's pausing and he's staring up at the ceiling. And eventually he does let slip this very particular phrase. He talks about how the poles have shifted before.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, shit.
Yeah.
Shit. So and dude, in this video, he goes on to say that if we wanted to escape in a calamity like that, the moon might not even be far enough to go.
The moon?
He said we'd have to go to Mars.
Oh.
So this dude is obsessed with going to Mars because he's anticipating a polar shift. So let me get this straight. The guy, the world's greatest autist, who seeks to put technology in your brain that he just trademarked the terminology telepathy for, is worried about a coming climate disaster, and it's the entire driving force for him trying to go to Mars.
I know. And listen, we've had these conversations, and I've had people on from differing points of view from scientific standpoints. First conversation we had about this was with Ben Davidson, and the timeline that we are given for a geophysical polar excursion like this, which would be like a 90-degree shift, where me here in New York would essentially be in the new Caribbean or somewhere where Argentina is at this point, and Antarctica would be tropical again or something like that. It's happening according to people who believe that this is the trajectory that we are on. It's going to be somewhere around 15 to 25 years from now. I don't even know if the only way the hell we can survive as a species is to get our asses to Mars, which, if you ever seen Interstellar, that is not about us. We're not getting any special. Even if it was possible to get us to Mars, to go live in some tent, I don't know. We're not getting any. We're not even getting economy class seats. Okay. So I don't know what the hell they think they're doing, especially within 25 years. It makes absolutely no sense to me. So the messaging seems off. It's just one of those things where if that's really the fate of the world, then I just got to be ready for it and hope my soul is prepared, because we're not getting off this rock, man. I don't look at that like, all right, so I'm not a black pillar by any means. And so I look at that and I go, that just doesn't resonate with me. What I will say though, is somebody in my chat today said it's like they're trying to escape the tribulation. And I said, oh, that's fun. I like that. I don't know what to do with that, but I like that a lot. You know what I mean? It's like, what if there is
cataclysm that will flatten the mountains? And it's like, judgment is coming. It's coming for everybody. But the people who have made these mistakes and have made their bed in a certain way, they can't pivot. They're just not.
They don't want to die.
Where they're going.
They want to live forever if they can.
Yes, but I mean, dig all the deep underground military bases you'd like. Try to get to Mars. I don't think we can get off this planet, but go ahead and try. I guess keep on dinging up the firmament. But the book that I read says something, and that book has been correct for my entire life. The more I deny it and then reread it again, the more I realize how stupid I've been. So hey, do what you got to do. I'm not black-pilled. I'm actually kind of optimistic about the future. I think things will be kind of beautiful. So we'll see whether this is the end times or not. I do think that we're moving into something really fun. So yeah, I don't know.
let me ask you, Frank, okay. Given everything that we've laid out here, disjointed, schizophrenic, maybe we're reaching, maybe we're misconstruing, but do you see those weird patterns that we're highlighting, and does our fascination with this make sense, or do you think that we're reaching?
Oh yeah, no. First of all, the first thing I made a mental note about is I have to go listen to these telepathy tapes just to hear exactly what you guys are referencing. So it's not, I know that for the sake of brevity and time and clock management over here that you have to paraphrase. And so I want to get that as a baseline. Number one, I still have a little bit conceptual problems with what the end game for that particular motive, what's the motive for disabling kids?
So what I'll say is it might be, and this is purely just speculation as much of this is that obviously the stronger the telepathic power, the more the line of communication to these entities, they are very concerned with spreading this message of preparedness to us. And so maybe the entire point is just this, is to get to the point where you can reveal this to the public, but do it in a way that is, I think, what's his name? Tucker Carlson said, we in the West have been stripped of our understanding of the spiritual realm. And I think that is true. And it almost feels like what you've done is first you introduce materialism, you got rid of the concept of spirituality. And then over a very long process, as the people felt as though the spiritual realm was undeniable, but we don't have a source of information to go to, we don't have an authority on the topic. And then once the people were primed, then you roll it out in this fashion. And what ends up happening is a bunch of, I think that's true. I feel as though I have a psychic, which you do. You have a psychic connection with everybody that's around you, and it grows. If you're married to somebody, you grow it. It becomes stronger.
You gotta stay 6 feet away from each other.
That's right. Yeah. Rupert Sheldrake is famous for his experiments on house pets and their seeming ability to determine when their owners are going to come home. About 15 minutes before their owners arrive, they begin to get a little neurotic, get a little anxious. They get up, they check the windows, and even the variable of when the owner comes home was switched up so that the owner was coming home at random times. The dogs were still able to determine this. So Rupert Sheldrake is a great source of information when it comes to that sort of study, and it exemplifies the fact that we all have it. This isn't just a breakthrough for autistic kids, but you needed somebody who the world would listen to. And I think in order to get the world to listen to them, you first had to convince the world that they couldn't speak. And then when they did, we would all stop and listen.
That is the main message of the telepathy tapes. They say at the very end, the victims of this experiment say, we just want to be listened to. We want to be heard.
So they will. The bridge has already been gapped with them technologically. We're already starting to get communications from those who have never been able to get any kind of messages to the outside world before. That's already happened.
If you take what's happening on the telepathy tapes as the truth, I mean, there's still a lot of scientific rigor that needs to go into it. You have to kind of do, I don't know what the equivalent of like a double blind placebo would be in this setting, but you have to get them. And I think they have been to some extent getting these people into this, a sort of a sterilized location where you could actually control the variables and determine whether or not this phenomena is real. But I mean, Frank, we know that the intelligence agencies have been dicking around with this forever. Whatever Kai Dickens, who's the lady who created telepathy tapes, has discovered here, do you think that the CIA hadn't discovered that already years ago? So I just think that what we're getting is a homogenized version that's rolled out for the public now. That's ready. But the intelligence agencies have known this for a long time.
There's a lot I can say about tonight, and this is one of those things. And I'd say that was a pleasant surprise for this because something to chew on, and it does tie into everything else. That might have been the biggest bonus topic for the evening, but the more I think about it, I'm going to find it relevant to not only how we have behaved over the course of millennia, and what is, again, what is the motive? What is the motive for anything? What's the motive for somebody who is dealing in technologies that has obviously a lot of spiritual linking and potential to? I always ask people, depending, and I know we gotta go here. I always ask people who are involved in these types of, I don't know, whether I talk to Kathy O'Brien and talk about MK Ultra, or have anybody else on to discuss anything from a ritual standpoint. I wonder how much of it is really just about controlling the minds of carbon-based life forms on Earth and wielding geopolitical influence and making their time here godlike. And how much of it is about actually trying to open up a passageway into a spiritual world to commune with spiritual entities and actually to try to become one of them, to land them a spot somewhere in the pantheon. And I think that we did a good job in going from the ancient times to now with the CIA, with the Ark of the Covenant, the mind, the spirit, all that coming together. And of course, when you talk about the body and turning the body into a prison, there has to be some kind of relevance with that as well. But the comments section is going to tell us exactly what they think one way or another. And I guess that's all that matters. I really appreciate you guys. Lobster and Raven, you got to come back. This was a lot of fun. There's so much more we can do. And give everybody a nice plug so they know where to find you and when.
Dude, thanks for having us, number one. It's always good to talk to you. And look, what we're kind of developing here is it is just that, it's developing. So Frank, you have context we don't have, and vice versa. If you happen to think of something where that fits into this, please reach out and let us know.
Yeah, drop me a DM.
This is honestly, it's ongoing, and it has captured our attention in a real wild way, and we're still piecing it together. So thanks for letting us come here and spew our psychotic shit. You could find me on Twitter, X, at David L. Corbo. Come and hang out there. I do a little bit of interacting there. And then you could find Nephilim Death Squad anywhere you get your podcasts. And you could also find us on Dangerous Retards with Clint Russell, which also is everywhere that you would find your podcasts.
That's right. That's Dangerous RTRDS. You can find me at Top Lobster. That's Top Lobster with an A, the little sign right behind me. I'm on Twitter, toplobster.com. That's where my merchandise is at. So if you want to support me, go pick up some cool t-shirts. And also, we are finalizing our plans. We do a bi-yearly.
No, semi-annual. I made that mistake. I kept calling it bi. That turns out that means once every 2 years. We're doing it semi-annual.
We do it twice a year. This for we're retarded. It's called Bohemian Grove. We're going to be in Leesburg, Florida this year, and we have a theater carved out. There's about a 250 seat 250 seat max in this theater, and it's an entire town. We're shutting it down. We're going to be in the streets. We're going to be in the venues around there. There's comic book stores. It's going to be a time to remember. One day of conspiracy, one day of comedy. It's going to be great. So if you guys are in the Leesburg, Florida area, just follow us on Nephilim Death Squad, and you'll hear a lot more about this. But this is going to be an event where a lot of your favorite content creators will be there. If you like conspiracy, if you like certain types of comedy as well, offensive comedy. So keep your eyes open for that.
So far we have Tripoli as our headliner, and we're working on Cashman. Shane Cashman is coming out as well. So we're still getting the lineup together, but June tentatively like 14th and 15th.
Oh man, June in Florida. That's going to be a nice toasty time. And
brutal.
I can't wait I want to be able to travel to stuff like that, just pack the family up and go on down there. So who the hell knows what happens? If not this year, then next. But we're going to have to chill. And everything that people need to know about you guys can be found in your link tree as well. I have your link tree in the description of the episode. So they'll find you one way or another. Have a wonderful evening, fellas, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, brother.
All right, take care. There they go. Top Lobster and the Raven. A lot of good stuff. And I have just enough time to do a meme review now. Okay? Just enough time to talk about some other amazing things that have been going on all around us. First, let me get into the super chat so I can get this out of the way and thank everybody so that we can just go a clean jump into the after hours. On quitefrankly.tv, pill.net. Boys Blanc sends a cookie. Why, thank you, boys. Stephen and Lori says, happy 74th birthday on Saturday, Frank. Yeah. Let's see. Forkum Dano, thank you for the cookie. Witchy Poo, thank you. The Sentinel says, quite a fascinating nebula of topics. Please have them back. Definitely will. We've only scratched the surface. Now I'm going to have to go take a listen to these telepathy tapes. Neo, great guests, Frank. Well, Neo, thank you so much, sir. I know. Neo's a girl. I just found that out on Saturday. All these years. Hey, would you blow me on Rumble says, I'm a fartist. That's very high on the spectrum. A fartist. That is very high on the spectrum. Jeez Louise. Jay Semo says, hey, Frank, cheers. Cheers to you. Another fartist is among us. And then Jay Brits, after all that thought-provoking discussion, let's go out for a simple game of catch. Great show, Coach. Thanks, Jay. Thank you. I was playing catch with Aurora today. I took out the Velcro pancake things. You have the tennis ball, and then you have the Velcro pads that you put on. You can play catch. Those are awesome. I often love, I used to have one of those leather, we used to call them the pancake glove, because it was a baseball glove that had, you could put your fingers into it, but you can't close it. It's a thick slab of rubber, and it's just circular, little indented there. So you can't squeeze the ball or anything like that. It forces you to just accept the ball. Boom. Soft hands, whatever you got to do. And I love that. It's so nice. You could do it with the backside of the glove too. Just boom. It's fancy schmancy. Anyway, I was using that with Aurora today. Say, hey, we're going to play with the pancakes today. It's, and we made up a pancake and a meatball game. And she was catching things all over the place. And it wasn't the Velcro, too, because it rolls right off the Velcro unless you give it some support. So she was using both hands. She's doing good. As long as she likes it, we'll keep going. Like I said, I'm not pushing. Grandma Grateful says, great show again, Frank. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. All right, so here's what we have. A little bit of a meme review for you. You just got to be on the lookout for it. Because this one, the lifespan on this one is probably going to be short, but it's really beautiful. And Top brought it up here too. We're going to talk a little bit about the Ghibli style pictures that are out there, the Ghibli anime. So here you have it on screen. I got something from India today, just so we can get a nice encapsulation of the subject. Ghibli style pictures take over X thanks to ChatGPT's new image generation feature. If you open X, formerly Twitter, right now, you are sure to come across at least one post with a Ghibli-style image. If you have been wondering why that is, it's thanks to ChatGPT's new image generation feature that launched on Tuesday. If you scrolled through, so essentially this came out of a very specific anime studio, the Ghibli studio. I'm not an anime guy. Friends of mine were. I have, just like by diffusion and osmosis, I have picked up some things along the way, and I understand this style of cartoon. So when I saw this, ChatGPT put it out because it's just one of those things where it's usually a very wholesome looking, happy, cheery, innocent, kind of a harmless thing. And then they gave it to us. And I love it right now because you got to soak it up, like I said. And if you don't know what the anime style, it's not really going to make that much sense, but it's a perfect blend of juvenile, brutally irrelevant, or irreverent. It's going to be irrelevant soon. And then harmless at the same time. And whatever cutesy little corporate motives there was for putting this tool out there with ChatGPT, it was quickly turned on its head by our boys and probably some of our girls as well. And the first thing I noticed, I said, what the hell is going on? What was that? The first thing I saw, which happens to be my favorite, is this Ghibli style picture of Donald Trump and Mitt Romney at the famous hostage dinner. The Mitt Romney hostage dinner. Trump had already won the election in 2016, and we got that picture of Mitt Romney at dinner with Trump looking like he is just a whipped little boy who hates how everything turned out. And this was the worst possible thing, especially after all the, the bloviating, the back and forth during the campaign. And then there he is sitting. And I said, who did this? And then there was just a flood. There was a flood. There's the Kandahar Giant for you. Speaking of Nephilim, there's a little bit more. There you go. The Saigon execution. It's gone all over the place. Okay, some are controversial, but some are just, I don't know, good. It's just good energy. Everything from George Floyd to Columbine to Hillary. Well, where's the Hillary one? Oh, there's Prince Andrew, Virginia Roberts, and Ghislaine Maxwell. This is when you knew it was totally in the stratosphere. Look at this. Look at this face. Look at this crying meatball over here. Look at this filth that we're finally getting out of the country. 36-year-old citizen of the Dominican Republic has a rap sheet that includes fentanyl trafficking conviction. Look at her. Look at that. This is a woman. Looks like a diabetic snowman. Face distorted from obesity. Her eyes look like two raisins stuck in a wad of dough. Anyway, she's getting deported. Thank God. And the White House took this story and retweeted it with a Ghibli image of her crying with an ICE officer. I mean, this is from the White House, my friends. You have to be able to enjoy this little ride. We've had a couple of it's not as hard hitting as the JD Vance memes were, but it is so much more poetic and iconic. Because it's not just, I mean, let me see here. There's a little bit more. Watch a little bit of the compilations of this. Now, this was set to music. But take a look at this, about a minute. I'll play a little bit less than that.
I'm a cop of a 5 Glock on some kid who steps up. That's what's hard to grasp. What even happened? You seen that hair blow off his shoulders in slow-mo. We won that. It's so cold. We won that. It's so cold. I see footage. I stay noise. You seven so much, boy. We'll lose this seem like no bones in him skin. Noise. My jaw hit the floor like this real floor. Gotta see that one more kid. I stay in this here and went over. Pedestrian in Brazil. Little tiger, boy soldier. Juicy came back and killed. See crazy shit, man, crazy shit. See crazy shit, man, crazy shit.
Dude, I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible. The things that you can pick up along the way in those. It's just been incredible. I don't know. A nice little ride through it. It's good energy. It's just iconic images. Some of them are worse than others, but it's just not. And then the White House got on top of it. So enjoy the Ghibli memes while you got them, while they're still fresh, because there's very little that has not been done yet, unless you want to make one for yourself, which is what I think ChatGPT thought people would be doing. You know, putting their some images from college. Oh, let's turn ourselves into Ghibli characters, some anime, and instead of people are uploading pictures of Hillary Clinton walking through little disheveled trailer apartment building, apartments or whatever, looking around at the squalor that the peasants live in and all that stuff. Oh man, it's just it really is art. So that's our meme review of the night. Afterwards, after the credits that are coming up right after this, here's what we have going on. Ready? Functional Human Podcast, Jay Gulinello. He'll be in tomorrow night, but this is episode 12. I don't know what's in it, but it's going to be good. It always is. Fantastic, fantastic information. Go check that out. Jimmy Dore with James Corbett. Asmund Gold. Upper Echelon. Stolen History. Jason Burmis. The Y-Files and Alien Scientist was the government investigation into 9/11, a CIA cover up. That's Jeremy Reese, who I was looking all over for on Twitter after the JFK files were released, and I couldn't find him anywhere. I'm gonna have to find a way to get in touch with him, because I wanted him to come on with us last Friday, but maybe I can get him on soon. But there's a lot of great stuff that's happening on quitefrankly.tv right after this ends, powered by pilled.net. So go to quitefrankly.tv and press play and chill out with some great people in the chat room. All right. So with that, I'll see you guys tomorrow to close out the show. Oh man, Stove Soup just dropped a sleeve of cookies on us all. Thank you so much, my friend. Thank you very much. And I'll see you guys. Hold on. There's another one. Grimbold says, happy 74th birthday, Frank. Thank you. You guys are very, very nice. You're nice people. 7 o'clock Friday. See you there. Enjoy your night.
I'll catch you on the flip side.
Quite Frankly is filmed before a live studio audience. And now our super chatters, starting with Jay Britz and all of our Rumble ranters and our gold pillars. That's right, my friends. Another night gone. But I love you all, and I'll see you tomorrow. Enjoy your time during the after hours and become a sponsor. That would be a wonderful 74th birthday present. Thank you.